We are going to get started here in just a couple of minutes to allow folks to join in. But while we are waiting, we wanted to just do a quick poll of our audience to see where everyone is joining us from. So if you don't mind throwing in the chat where you're located, it would be great to know where people are joining us from. And I will let you know where I'm at. I'm Melissa Russell, and I'm the head of demand gen here at Wallarm, and I'm located just outside of Seattle, Washington, which surprisingly, it is not raining here today. Looks like our speakers are joining us from San Francisco, and we have got quite the variety here. We've got people joining us from Montreal, Quebec, Chicago, Madison, Wisconsin, representing the Midwest, Atlanta, Georgia. Oh my goodness, somebody is joining us from Dubai. Welcome. We've got Jackson, Wyoming, Bangalore, India. Boy, we certainly have every Mugla, Turkey, Kiev in the Ukraine, London, Marin County, which is in California, Moscow. We have somebody joining us from Tehran, the Netherlands. Well, we definitely have quite the global audience with us today.
Yeah, the Big Apple. Hey, New York.
All right. Well, let's see here. I want to thank everybody for joining us. It looks like we've got representation from across the United States and from around the world. But why don't we go ahead and get started? I would like to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us for today's presentation, Wallarm 101, See End-to-End API Security in Action. Again, my name is Melissa Russell and I'll be your host for today. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. We will be recording this session and we will make the recording available afterwards. If you have any questions during the presentation, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A. We will save some time at the end to answer them. I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. Our speakers are Stefan Ilian and Alex Diaz. Stefan is the co-founder of Wallarm, and joining him is Alex Diaz, the Vice President of Security Solutions here at Wallarm. And now, gentlemen, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Melissa. I'm just keep reading all those cities where the people are, are Italy, Japan, Netherlands. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Yeah, I'm in San Francisco. Alex, you are in San Francisco today, right?
Yeah, exactly. Same place. Yeah, it's crazy how many people from all over the place. Nice places.
Yeah, that's so awesome. It's actually late hour in Italy, for instance. So thank you everyone for joining. And we have a huge crowd today, like almost 100 people, and people keep joining. So we also are live stream it to LinkedIn and some other platforms. So feel free to connect there or maybe connect the next time. So don't be surprised, it's everywhere now. I think it's a good time to start, right?
Yeah.
Let me open my slides then. And guys, we will try to make it interactive. So if you have any questions, and obviously we'll have Q&A session at the very end, but feel free to shoot it away like here in the chat or Q&A panel here in Zoom UI. If you have anything, both of us here, either me or Alex will keep an eye on the questions, and maybe we can answer some of them right here in the presentation or the demo. So let's keep it interactive. I will start with a few slides just to give you an overview of what we do, what Wallarm is about, like what kind of issues we can help you with. Then we switch to the demo and we'll show you a few examples of the threats we can identify and mitigate. So this is a plan, and I think, Alex, can you just say that I'm sharing everything?
Yeah, I can see it now. All good.
I can see it. Yeah, awesome. The last time I tried it with a Safari and it didn't work well, so I just want to make sure. So guys, for those, I'm pretty sure I see a lot of names that we're already familiar with, so thank you all for joining, but I also see a lot of new names. So for all of you who don't know Wallarm is end-to-end API security solutions. And what do we basically help our customers is to protect their APIs. Basically, it's not only APIs, it's APIs, microservices, web applications, basically even websites. We can protect everything, but the main focus for us, historically, was the API-based applications. And we help some of the largest companies in the world, our Fortune 500. We help some of the largest startups in the world, which is also good, like Dropbox and Miro, analyze a huge number of traffic, identify different kind of threats. If you look through the different kind of grids. You can see that we're the #1 API security solution in G2 by the customer reviews. We're also the only leader in the API security grid by G2, which is awesome. But this is not what's important. The important thing is what we actually do, right? So let me just jump right into the some slides about the product and what do we actually provide. One of the things that unites our customers is the modern infrastructure, modern applications, modern APIs. And when we talk with the customers, we always hear like REST, GraphQL, service mesh, multi-cloud strategy, zero trust, Kubernetes, and all of those things. And people also are asking, hey, we moved to this new architecture. We have this multi-cloud environment right now, like everything is Kubernetes based, but we still use some kind of old products, are like WAFs, or sometimes people rely on the API gateways to protect against some kind of threats. They are asking, like, what we can do better? Like, I'm pretty sure we are not protected against Log4j, for instance, like just having all those things. Is there anything you can add specifically for our REST APIs or for our GRPC APIs? And that's true. That's true, because most of the WAF miss a lot of attacks that are targeting APIs because the attacks are different. API gateways can provide some value, like awesome features like rate limiting and provide authentication. But at the end of the day, it's not an API threat prevention solution, right? So they are not providing any value if you build this API security strategy. So, and this is a big thing. 83% of all the web traffic nowadays are API calls. So we're just like, this is a huge number. It's all about APIs, and what Gartner is saying is that in this year, attacks against APIs will be the #1 attack vector. It's not even the #2 or #3, it's the #1 thing. Would it be? I think it's a good question, frankly, but what do we know exactly? That we see news about some company that is breached because of the API flaw, like almost every week nowadays. And this is a big, big issue. Even though if you have some tooling in place, like a WAF, you are still not protected. And you need to keep in mind and adopt new practices, new ideas into the way how you develop your APIs and apps, but also into the tooling that you need to introduce. And I'm not even talking about some commercial tools like Wallarm. I'm talking a lot about the basically open source tools that you can adopt into your CI/CD pipelines, or some open source tools that can give you visibility. And obviously there are some products out there that can also help you there. But the important thing is just you need to think about the API security strategy as your new product security strategy. And there's just no other way to think about that. API security is a lot of things, frankly. And I don't know, like we can even ask you guys, like, what is API security for you? Can you just answer it in the channel? And like, let's take a look what everybody's thinking about the API security. Because sometimes when we talk with a company and we start talking about the ways how they protect APIs, they're just saying, hey, this is the authentication we use, or this is the kind of encryption we use for the API endpoints. Some other things that some other companies are in the practitioners are saying, hey, yeah, we do this API rate limiting for authentication method, for instance, because we have a problem with the bots, and we typically do this on the API gateway level. Some other companies are saying, hey, we have a WAF and we just trust this WAF vendor that we can identify SQL injections, that kind of stuff that is coming against our APIs, and this kind of thing. And if you take a look at this OWASP API security top 10, there's like clearly 3 categories which we believe you can think about is authentication, authorization, and threat prevention. And Wallarm can be helpful in a variety of the ways for all of those things, but there are some specific areas where we provide most of the values, and we just highlighted during this presentation. We will highlight most of those things so that you can see where specifically you can deploy Wallarm and what kind of value you can get out of it. Just a little bit of the history here, because we are not the company that was founded this year or even the last year. Frankly, since 2016, we continuously worked hard on presenting the like these Fortune 500 companies and startups, tooling and solutions that they can deploy anywhere in their infrastructure to protect their APIs. And there was like every year there was some kind of milestone that we introduced to protect APIs. In 2016, we introduced what we call deep API request inspection for REST and SOAP, basically the solution that can analyze all the traffic without any API specs and identify different kind of threats against REST API endpoints. We introduced the protection for the web sockets. Like in 2017 and in 2018, we introduced our new deployment methods for API gateways and Kubernetes. Like we'll talk more on that. And obviously, over the last years, we put a lot of efforts and emphasized a lot of things related to the GraphQL and GRPC. You would be surprised how often we heard about the GRPC and GraphQL APIs over the last 12 months. Those technologies are taking off, even though REST is still a number one, and clearly REST APIs would be the number one for quite a while, but we see this huge adoption of the new protocols, and we're just committed that we can protect everything. And some of the other stuff we introduced like later last year is like API discovery and solution to identify shadow and zombie APIs, different kind of features to prevent the API abuse, and so forth. We'll talk about that. Let's talk about the deployment, because this is the number one question that people are asking us. Like even before going into the details and specific features, people are saying, hey, we have this huge infrastructure, we have a very tough operations team, we have a huge requirements into the latency and so forth. How your product can be deployed? And the good thing here is that we are really platform agnostic. You can deploy Wallarm anywhere. It can be multi-cloud hybrid environment. It can be something that you're running in Kubernetes. There are plenty of options to deploy in Kubernetes. If you're using the API gateway like Kong, we can just plug in as a module. If you have software-based load balancers like Nginx, Envoy, we can just plug in a module there. If you're running on EC2, there's a way of deployment. If you don't want to deploy anything in your infrastructure, there is also a fully SaaS cloud deployment, which just route the traffic in our cloud and we do the job there. So for whatever infrastructure you have, just believe this, we can find a way to deploy. And that would be something that your SRE team, your DevOps team will like, because this would be very cloud native way of deployment. Infrastructure as a code, monitoring, different kind of connections with the monitoring tools like Prometheus and everything else, it's all there. But more importantly, if anybody in the company will ask, hey, what about latency? Like, will this kind of new fancy security product will add any latency? You will say no. Like it's all like near zero latency. Obviously, there's some latency if you want to be deployed in line and to provide the introspection of the API calls. But even in this case, it's near zero latency. That is just proven by some of the largest companies in the world. And believe me or not, we can provide you a lot of benchmarks to prove that it just works. There are a lot of ways of deployment, but essentially what's important is that all the traffic would be analyzed in your infrastructure. We would not ask you to Miro all the traffic anywhere, as some of the companies out there are asking you, because this is your traffic, guys. Like ideally, this traffic should be in your infrastructure. So the way how Wallarm is operating is that you deploy so-called Wallarm nodes in your own infrastructure. These nodes, and I already talked a little bit about the way how they can be deployed. They operate in your own infrastructure. They provide the API call analysis. We do some learning locally, and traffic never actually leaves your premise. So it stays in your AWS, Google Cloud, or multi-cloud environment. This is what is happening. However, we have a cloud part, and this is where you can see all the events. This is where you can see and analyze the chain of the attacks. This is where you can see information about the vulnerabilities. This is where we actually collect some metadata to adjust security rules specifically to your APIs. This is where you create different kind of integrations with the tooling that you have, like SIEM, source, and so forth. We will talk more about that during demo, but the important thing here is that the traffic will stay in your infrastructure. We don't want to see your traffic. And this is a great way of deployment when you actually can be compliance ready or privacy ready, but in the very same way, you will get full and proper visibility into the malicious API traffic that is targeting your API endpoints. So what do we actually do? This is a good question, right? Like, what is Wallarm? What kind of features do you provide? Like, what do you have there in the product? We typically speak about the four things. The first thing is discover. You can predict something that you don't know, right? So what we do is one of the most sophisticated discovery pieces. We do it from two perspectives. One is API discovery. We basically analyze all the traffic with these Wallarm nodes. And we, based on the actual usage, we can say, these are the API calls that you have. These are the API methods for every website, for every application that you have. These are the parameters that are used there. These are the types of parameters. So basically the full visibility of what APIs do you have out there, including shadow and ROG APIs. It's like you will have the full visibility of everything that we see in the traffic. We'll show you in the demo. The second thing is what we call attack surface discovery. This is what we can do from outside. So in our cloud, we have a special scanner that will take your domains and basically will identify all the assets you have, like all domains, subdomains, services, applications that are exposed. So we basically do this from two directions. One is based on the traffic, but another one is from our own cloud using a variety of the techniques. We'll talk a lot about that later. When you know what you need to protect, when you know what is exposed, and by the way, it's not only exposed assets. If you're using Wallarm to protect your internal microservices, we will also show you the internal microservices and internal assets. You need to protect all those things, right? So this is the protect part of the product. And this is what we basically called API threat prevention without any specs from your side. And the reason why I'm saying that is because a lot of vendors out there, especially web vendors, they will ask you specifically to upload the API specs to provide the protection. We won't do this. Like, it's just like a lot of hassle with the configuration, with the updates and everything else. We made the product that just works right away after the deployment. So in this case, once Wallarm node sees the traffic, we will provide the protection against the API loss top 10, account takeover, different kind of bots, or in many cases L7 DDoS attacks. It's like the full scope of the threats that your apps and APIs can be facing, and we can do it in real time. A lot of vendors out there that will ask you for integrations with the firewalls or WAFs or anything else. And it's kind of strange in 2022 to ask for integrations like that. Like, it should be one unified complete product, and this is what we provide to the customers. You can just get the full visibility, but also mitigation right like within the one product. And this is really, really great. One important thing to mention here, and this is very important. I know like all the vendors out there, they will claim the low level of the false positives, but we actually invested a lot, and we open sourced a lot of attack detection techniques like lip detection, which is fully grammar based, no signatures, no regular expressions, to provide you best accuracy, not only on the false positives part, but also on the false negative part. So like, we just put a lot of efforts into the making sure that you can deploy this product and in a day or two move to the what we call smart blocking mode without worrying about the false positives. The next piece is a respond. So obviously everybody's attacked. You will see a lot of attacks that are coming against your APIs. So what to do with that, right? And how to analyze all those events, where you need to react, which of those events are really dangerous and require your immediate attention of your IR team. So we put a lot of efforts into making sure that your SOC team or IR team, they have full visibility into the chain of attacks. We group together all the events that are, we believe, related to each other. but more importantly, we also can automate incident response with the features like active threat verification. We will talk more about that during the demo. And obviously, yes, it's great to have this visibility in the Wallarm dashboards and the Wallarm console, but we provide all the connectors with the SIEMs, SOARs, whatever your DevOps, DevSecOps, SOC teams are using. We can connect and basically feed the data, like really, really full data about the malicious traffic and malicious actions into all those solutions that you can leverage while working and establishing your IR incident response workflows. And the last piece is on security side. So we have this active threat verification piece that actually can verify the attacks and provide you details of what is going on. We can continuously check your assets to identify different misconfigurations. We will show you during the demo. But also, like, there is a module which you can incorporate into your CI/CD environment. It's still in early access kind of product, but we also work on a lot of features that can actually help you to automate security testing of APIs, which is awesome. I think this is a good time to maybe jump into the demo. Let me first start with the overview. And by the way, Alex, can you see my screen? Still see my screen? Just want to make
sure. Yes, I can still see it.
Okay, yeah, perfect, yeah. Let me start with the overview of Wallarm console, because demo is the most interesting part, right? This is why we invited all those people, just to show you the product. I will give you an overview of what we have here. First, then Alex will show you a few examples of the live attacks, and we'll show you how the Wallarm can mitigate those things and show in the UI. And then maybe we can make the interactive session and just like answer some of the questions you all have. So this is the Wallarm console. So remember, when I was telling you that the traffic is analyzed locally, I also said that we have a Wallarm Cloud Engine and a console. So this cloud console, it lives in the cloud, so you don't need to host it. It lives in our own environment. And what do you get right after you deploy Wallarm nodes is this full visibility into the malicious traffic and malicious actions that are happening with your APIs. And more importantly, you also get data and insights of where you can be vulnerable. What do you need to fix out there? This board shows you like amount of traffic that you have, like normal and malicious traffic. We show you also what we call incidents. We'll talk more about that because it's a very interesting concept. You can see breakdown by different APIs that you have. So like how much traffic do you have? Like what are the trends? Do you see more traffic? Do you see more attacks out there? It's basically helpful to see, to understand like what is going on with your API portfolio. There is clearly the breakdown by different kind of attacks. Every security vendor has this map of the attacks. Obviously, you see where those attacks are originated. So all those things that are really, really helpful to provide you top level visibility. But if you need to go into the details, and this is the most interesting part, this is where you can get most of the value from Wallarm, because for every particular day, you can just like, let's just take a look at what is going on right now. So you can see there's 12 attacks that are happening right now. We can just like take a look and see what is going on right away for this demo environment. And frankly, this is a demo environment. So some of those attacks, they're created artificially, but all those assets are exposed. And we could just see a lot of attacks that are happening, like especially something like Log4j all the time. And when we click like to this events page, you basically have full visibility on the attacks. Let's take a look at the attacks for today. And as you can see, there's 2,000 attacks. In many cases, attack is just not a one malicious request. And as a matter of fact, most of the attacks consists of multiple requests, in some cases, hundreds and thousands. So what we try to do is not to overwhelm with like all the data that you have there, like with all those events. We try to group together and to have what we call chain of the attacks and see which of the malicious requests are related to each other. So every line here is basically an attack, but when you click any single line here, you actually can get the full list of the malicious requests. So you see the black lines here. All of them like every line here is a malicious request. You can even drill down and see the details, like the headers are the malicious payload. You can see the payload here, but also you can see it's in the raw request. So we basically have full visibility. So it's not only a log file that will say, hey, we believe that this particular IP address is sending some malicious traffic to you. No, we will actually tell you and like provide full visibility of what is going on here. And if you want to take a look at some specific application or some specific API, you can do that. Let's just like open the something that is related to the REST, just like very random attack here. And as you can see, this is the attack against the REST API endpoint. I can expand it. You can see the payload for this API call, but you can see also the malicious payload here. So obviously and clearly, this is a SQL injection attack that is happening right here. And to provide this protection, we didn't ask for anything. So we do this, what we call deep API request inspection. This is technology that basically allows us to take your requests and automatically parse and apply the cascade of parsers if it's required. For instance, if it's a JSON and there is some field in base64, we won't ask you for any tips. We will just do this automatically with almost zero latency. And this is really impressive. The important thing is that you not only get data about what attacks we detected, but you also get the data which of those attacks might be dangerous. Because frankly, like if you have thousands or millions of attacks every day, can you analyze those things? Maybe if you know what you're looking for, and this is Wallarm provides like full visibility, like search, filters, and everything else. But wouldn't it be great if you will get some insights, which of those attacks really can be harmful, really can be dangerous? And this is where we thought we can provide some values with the extra testing and extra scanning. So we introduced what we call active threat verification. So for every attack that we detected, we run active threat verification. So you see the green mark on the right side, this green mark here. If it's a green mark, it means that we detected this attack, we blocked it, depending on the mode that you operate, and we know that this is not dangerous. We just know that for this particular API and this particular API method and this parameter, we just like ran the check for the path reversal attack, and we just know it's not vulnerable. There might be a different situation when we actually, and as you can see, we check this attack, we check this attack is scheduled to be verified. Like long story short, like for all attacks that we detect, we try to run these verifications. And it's good when we don't detect anything, we don't detect any vulnerability. There might be a situation that is not exactly that way. In some cases, we actually run the tests, run the checks, and we see that actually the API might be vulnerable. In this case, we create what we call incident. So in this case, we just see, okay, this is a parameter that was affected. This was the attack. In many cases, like if you run the product in blocking mode, we block all those requests. But we also ran the checks and we identify that there is a vulnerability. So you can see that there is an associated vulnerability here. So we can click here and actually get the details on the SQL injection vulnerability for this API endpoint. So basically send some payloads, and now you can see that actually, there we can see the errors in the application response. So this is an indicator that this particular endpoint might be vulnerable. Let me show you a different example. So we all know Log4j, right? This is something that was a huge mess a month ago, and we still work with a lot of companies who are applying all the patchwork right now, and we're helping them with the API threat prevention to protect their assets meanwhile. So let's take a look at this Log4j and take a look at what was going on during the last months for this demo environment. And I can just say, hey, show me the attacks and incidents for last 30 days. And what I will use the search for this specific payload, because for the largest, like for the most known CVEs, we create the pattern and you can look for that. So basically for the log4j, we introduce the update like within minutes, so that you can not only detect, but also like find all the data for the log4j vulnerabilities. And you can see that even for today, there was like 1,500 attacks that are coming against headers. I'm pretty sure that there is something against post. We actually can check it out, because this is what is happening right now, right away. Like from all the parts of the world, there are a lot of mass scanning for log4j vulnerability, and it can say somebody's scanning from the VPN. We provide these details on the source. Some, in many cases, attacks are originated in the data centers. So for the purpose of this demo, we deployed a vulnerable version of the Java application, which had a log4j vulnerability. So what you can see is that among this 1,500 attacks, there are also 2 incidents. I'm sorry. And you can see, okay, this was an attack. It was detected, and you clearly can see the log4j payload, and you can see that it was coming in this XAPI version method or header. Sorry. We rechecked this attack, and you can see the CVEs. You can see that it has attack for log4j, which is great. We rechecked it, and we identified that this is actually a vulnerability. So we can click here, and you get all the details about the vulnerability. So you know that this domain, this particular parameter is affected. And what's important is you get this exploit example. What do we call it? Basically the request that was created by the Wallarm task scanner, and you see the response from the API. So we can basically create a ticket for your developers right away so they can fix it. By the way, we have an integration with the Jira, so you can also like make it an automated process for your environment. I think this is the right moment. There are a lot of things to show you on top of it, but since we talk about the attack detection and everything else, I just want to pass the baton to Alex and maybe show some live attacks so we can see how they can identify it, show it, and mitigate it with the Wallarm. Let me stop sharing here.
Perfect. Thank you, Stefan. There are probably a couple of questions in the Slack. I did my best to answer them, but if you can review and answer the ones that are pending, that would be great.
Sure.
Perfect. Well, before going into the CLI, this is going to be a CLI console demo. I'd like to just give you a quick overview of how the demo looks like and kind of the architecture behind. So you have your end users, good and bad. Then doing the connections using protocols, accessing your APIs, GRPC, GraphQL, REST, SOAP. And then you have a Wallarm node. So as you can see, all the connections are going through a Wallarm filtering node. And then you have your protected APIs. These APIs could be, again, GRPC, GraphQL, GRPC, etc. So my demo, what I want to do, I want to be the user, and I want to be doing sending some malicious requests and be the bad person here. So let me go back to my console. So here you have the REST, GraphQL, GRPC, and WebSockets demo I want to show you today. So let's start with REST. So with the REST demo, what I have is I'm connecting to Forex Exchange API. So I'm turning dollars into US pounds. So as you can see, I'm using curl and adding certificates to log into the API, and also using basic authentication to log in. Of course, I say I want to set up the host name, and as you can see, I'm exchanging 1,000 pounds into dollars. Oh wow, the pound is strong today. So you get $768 with this exchange. There's nothing wrong with this request from the user perspective. You went straight into the application. So this is how it looks when everything goes well. So what I want to try to do is a SQL injection and trying to send the funds, this is the account where once you do the exchange, this is going to be the destination account. So what I want to do, I want to do a SQL injection on that specific account. And as you do, I do a union select, which is a SQL injection to be able to send to a specific account once I transfer the funds. And as you can see, this also has been encoded in B64. So even if there's encoding into that attack, because I'm trying to hide it, Wallarm is able to decode that on the fly and be able to detect the SQL injection. And as you can see here, this has been blocked by Wallarm. So that request, as in the diagram I show you, never made it to your application but because it was detected as an attack. Now let's go into the UI. And this is the Wallarm console that Stefan showed you before. And you can see right now the attack I just did. So let's go and see one request, the one I just did. You can see that was a base64 encoded attack because I was trying to hide it. And then I see the SQL injection trying to get into the other account. You see the source IP. One of the questions is, do we block? Yes, we block. If you're in monitoring in blocking mode, you're able to see the 403 error that the connection was refused. As you can see, we can see all the elements from the request from headers. So if the attack is in the header, it will be detected. If it's in the path, it will be detected. And even we go to the body of the request, which this is exactly what your API schema will look like once you send that. As you can see it, the same thing I got with curl. With a JQ, I was able to see it here. I see all the transaction and the attack as it happened when I did it. Perfect. So that was for REST. Let's move to a different protocol. Let's go to GraphQL. For GraphQL, I have a database of users. And what I want to try to do is create a dump of user. I want to dump all the user database, which I shouldn't be allowed to do because I'm not a root, I'm not the admin. And also, if that doesn't work, I want to try to get the root account that is usually the account, the first row in the database. So I want to run this demo. So this is the query. So if you use any tool, this is a GraphQL query where I'm trying to get by email, I'm trying to get this account. I'm not trying to get the user ID. So I enter the email, give me the user ID for this account. So at this point, I got the user ID. In this case, what I'm trying to do is an OR. So I'm trying to get all the accounts by using a SQL attack. And at this point, it was forbidden because it was detected as a SQL injection. Now you can select another SQL attack. You can see the payload, the query. And you can see has been blocked by Wallarm. So this is coming from GraphQL format. Now let's go, we have detected that in the console. You see another attack here using GraphQL. You can see the IP where it's coming from, that's my IP address. So we're able to see the two attacks I just did. Here you were able to parse the GraphQL body showing the attack, the SQL injection. Again, you can see header information, the body, and the URI. And you can see how it has been blocked and recognized as a SQL injection from a Wallarm perspective. So far we did REST and GraphQL. Let's go gRPC. The difference with gRPC, as you know, is a bidirectional protocol. So you get updates back from the server back to the user. So let's run this again. So what I'm going to do here, there's an application called gRPC curl. I'm running the demo in Docker. So what I'm doing, I'm sending messages. And one of these messages I want to send is going to be a bad one. Here, there is nothing wrong with it. So hello, I am a cat. So just a plain text message. And if everything goes well, I get this in a Miro format. So I reverse the string. Now I'm going to send the same message. We're going to do a base64 encoding to it. Hello, I'm a cat. This is a representation in a base64 format, has been mirrored. There's nothing wrong with this. Now, this is where I'm starting with the attacks. With gRPC curl, which actually sending everything via protobuf using gRPC, of course, I send a command cat etcd shadow. If this command translates into an operation at the operating system level, it's going to reply back and mirror back your contents of your shadow file. As you can see here, has been forbidden by Wallarm. Now, this is everything running using protobuf. I try to do the same. I'm trying to hide it now. I'm now going to add a B64 encryption to it. Try to see if you're able to be detected, and the same way has been detected. Here I added the attack also in the header. So all the attacks were in the body previously. Here, as you can see, the authorization basic. This last attack was also in the header, okay, and also was forbidden by Wallarm. So let's go back to the UI. Let's see if we see these attacks again. Now, new protocol, so you can see GRPC as a protocol. And even if it's running a GRPC, you're able to see all the attacks. This is the one I sent using the header. So all you see is the header information. If I go to this one, for example, you will see the body of the requests. B64 encoded. Wallarm was able to decode that on the fly and block it. I want to do one more from, as you know, the famous attack, which is log4j. As you can probably recognize this string here. So I'm sending a log4j attack over GRPC, and as you can see, has been forbidden. So this is a new attack. Everyone knows about it. I'm using a GRPC curl, and this is the format. So you see, you can recognize by this section. Also here, if I take this string here, and decode it here, you can see there's a command there. You don't want to be run. So even if this is the case, you can see this has been denied. So here we're able to discover the famous log4j attack, and that has been blocked by Wallarm. Let's go into the console one more time to see that specific attack. This is the last one, remote code execution. And you can see the payload detected by Wallarm here. So as if you're using Wallarm and in blocking mode, automatically all these attacks are going to be blocked because it has been detected as log4j attack. Here clearly you can see the body has been that triggered this attack. And the last one but not least, WebSockets. So if you have a WebSocket API, here I'm using lib WebSocket. It's a C-based library where I can actually start a server and a client. So this is, you can see AWS servers on my WebSocket server and my client. And here where I can send messages. Hello. And all I get is the messages back. I get my PID ID, which is my process doing the request. And you can see the server is getting all these messages. And what the server is doing is mirroring these messages to all the connected WebSocket clients. So nothing wrong with that until I try a couple of attacks. Let me see here. So let's try a couple of attacks. Let's try a SQL attack over WebSockets. See what happened. Oh, got disconnected here. The message didn't go through. As you can see, my client was forced to reconnect to upgrade the WebSocket. So, but the connection was closed. As you can see, the server never got that connection. You don't see anything in the hex dump from the server. So we never received it. It was blocked by Wallarm before getting into the server and getting to the other clients. So let's try now one more time, one more attack. Log4j over WebSockets. We tried that with GRPC, that worked. Let's see if we can actually make it work also over WebSockets. Disconnected to. Message never made it. Now let's try a normal one again. Hello, message back, mirrored by the server, and the server is getting the message again. Now finally we go to events, and we see the last protocol detected. You see the response code for this. And you can see now, even in WebSocket, you can see the log4j attack I just did with the JSON message I sent over WebSockets. You can see here the host IP and the headers of the WebSocket. Perfect. So that concludes my CLI demo. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for joining. Stefan, back to you.
Thank you, Alex. What a great CLI demo. Like it's always great to show some live attacks, right? And show how
100%. Yeah.
if we can mitigate all those things. Let me show you a few other things in the Wallarm console, because obviously there are so many things we want to show you guys, but there's some stuff that we really want to emphasize and mention. So one of the pieces that we are proud is a discovery piece. And as I said, we can analyze all the traffic you have, and we wouldn't ask you for the API specs as other vendors. We will actually give you the specs that we see and can generate based on the traffic. So this is the data from the demo environment for our own API. So basically, you can get the full specs of your APIs, right? Like all the get, post, put parameter, put methods, which is awesome because this is what we see in the traffic, and you can literally identify any shadow APIs, any rogue APIs. You can ask questions like why we have this v3 version of the API still exposed if we are on v4 for a year and a half ago. So like there are a lot of things here. You can download the open API specs like Swagger and basically compare it like every day. Are docs from the developers, docs that are generated by Wallarm, and see the difference. And in many cases, you would be surprised how many changes, how many differences you can identify in this case. And those are good questions to ask. Like, why on earth we have those things exposed if we don't have any documentation of that? Like, is it because those things shouldn't be exposed in the first place? This is the right answer to ask. As I've said, we also can scan, identify different kind of assets, not only APIs, with using the scanner piece. So in this case, you just provide us your domain, like Wallarm demo, and we will use a variety of techniques to identify assets that are exposed. In most cases, those are techniques that the bad guys will do, like brute force subdomains. We'll take a look at the history for the SSL certificates, take a look like what is in the cache of the search engines. Like basically, we'll try to identify all the assets that you have to give you the full picture. Hey, this is what you have. This is what you need to protect. But more importantly, we also can scan it for different kind of API specific issues, and basically for the application security issues. So this is the part of the UI where you actually can manage the modules for the scanning. And as you can see, we divided everything by the CWE, and you can see, hey, for instance, for the information disclosure, CWE 200 are some of the things that can actually provide attackers with the details, like Git repository exposed, like this one. You'll be surprised, by the way, how often this vulnerability we see. Or you can find something like the software that is using the outdated version of the tooling or known vulnerabilities. So all those things we can now apply to scan your assets. And once again, if we identify anything, you just go to the vulnerabilities. Let's just open the high and most critical vulnerabilities here. And you see the full list, like log4j, remote code execution. There is a outdated version of the some kind of software. Then there is an access to the source code through the Git repository, like this is one that I just mentioned. So, and once again, for every vulnerability, you have the full details. So you can open it and instantly get the details, why Wallarm thinks this is a vulnerability in the first place. So it's a great thing to share with the developers that will provide actions to reproduce this vulnerability, which is awesome. A very powerful thing which we are proud are triggers. So it basically can be very granular in configuring the things that you want to do. Like if you want to apply the advanced rate limiting for some authentication methods, for instance, you can do that. Just like create the trigger by saying, hey, if there is some certain amount of the requests that are coming to this our authentication endpoint are, I want to blacklist this IP address for some time, for instance. You can even be more specific by saying, like, if you know that there are some bots that are using some specific user agent, you can add the condition, like put the user agent and do this kind of thing. Or you know that they are using some parameters, so you can specify these rules very, very on a very, very granular basis. Another thing to mention are the integrations. So I mentioned to you that if you're using any dev tools, DevSecOps tools like Seams, ORs, you can set up the connections. You can use those connections in triggers. So for instance, if there is let's say there is a spike in the attacks for some specific hour against some specific API, you can set up the notifications in your Slack. So in this case, you will be instantly alerted that something is wrong, something is off. There is a huge spike of the attacks happening there. Please take a look. And all those things, like, we don't have time to cover everything, but you can set up all those workflows for your incident response procedures that will just work great, like for multiple teams, not only for security team, but also for the DevOps team and everybody else here. One thing that really great to mention is what we call safe blocking. We also sometimes call it smart blocking rules, smart blocking theme. This is something that you can use right away because there is some value in the product that works in the monitoring mode. It provides visibility. But at the end of the day, what you really want is the mitigation. So, and this is just like a special mode which you can turn on right after the deployment. So basically, you deploy the Wallarm node, you turn on the Wallarm blocking mode, and this is what allows you to mitigate most of the attacks. I don't really care a lot about the false positives, because in this case, we will use some kind of thresholds, like we won't block every single malicious request, but we will start blocking malicious requests from specific IP address only if like it reaches some kind of threshold. And this is all controlled with the gray lists, so that it provides a very safe way to start using the product in a blocking mode, which is the most important thing. Obviously, there's like the way how you can specify blacklists and whitelists. You can block all the traffic from Tor, or for compliant reasons, you can block the traffic from some countries or from some geographies. So this is all here. You can just manage and control using everything. And even if there are some false positives, sometimes they can happen. No vendor can say there is zero false positives. I just remember the question last time. There's a very easy way to report this false positive, and you don't need to go and manually create any rules. The rule will be created by yourself. It's not a black box. You can just go to the rules. You can see what kind of rules the system created for you. But just think about it, just like minutes and hours of your time that are saved, because like everything is conducted automatically. I think we have a lot of questions to answer, and we're kind of running out of time. So let's just make sure that we answer at least some of them.
Yeah, so there's one, I kept it for you, Stefan. So one of the questions is, can I detect attacks based on a logical base, or is it payload only?
It's both. It's both. So we have this input validation using the lib detection and some other attack detection techniques, but you also can specify the logic, like for instance, spike in the traffic. There's some cool stuff that is coming this year when you can more specify the chain of actions. It's more on the bot protection side when we basically mitigate the automated actions. So we're hopefully in some further demos, we will tell you more on that. I see the question, like, what is the difference between the Wallarm and APG? I think this is a good one. So APG is a great API management platform that actually provides some API security capabilities, which is great. But as any other API management solution, it's more for the developers and less for the security teams. So we actually augment the APG or API gateways with the API threat prevention, API discovery piece, and everything else there. So like it's those products should work together. So it's not the situation when we can replace APG or APG can replace Wallarm. They are working together to provide you API management, like features of the API gateway, but also like the very robust features for the API threat prevention in real time. Just like I see, can you please elaborate more on the deployment mode? So I mentioned this already, that we have a plenty of deployment options. So like it's always great to jump on the call and to talk more about that. But basically, there are Wallarm nodes that can be deployed in any cloud, in multi-cloud environment. They works as a reverse proxy in most cases, but they also can work on the copy of the traffic if it's your preference. And you can deploy in Kubernetes as a sidecar or in REST controller. It can be deployed as a load balancer. It can be deployed in service mesh. So whatever infrastructure you have, there is a way how we can deploy it. And the deployment can be also automated. So if your DevOps operational team is using something like infrastructure as a code approach, like with the Terraform or Ansible or Chef or Puppet, so like it's all be automated. The deployment of Wallarm can be automated with those DevOps tools, which we see every day with our tech customers. They do this all the time. Guys, do you see any other questions that we haven't answered in the chat maybe?
Let me check again. I did my best to answer all of them. There's a new one there.
There's a follow-up one. Say I have a live app made of a mix of Lambda and containers with multiple API endpoints. So I need a Wallarm node reverse proxy in front of each.
It's a good question, and we can talk more about that. One of the ways would be to deploy Wallarm in front of it, but we also have a special mode of deployment for Lambdas specifically, when you can actually incorporate a piece of code in your Lambda function code. And Lambda function by itself will send the input from user for the validation, and the Wallarm node will report back if it's malicious or not. So there is a way of deployment for Lambda specifically.
Yeah, we have a customer also using that type of deployment, using also a container in front of the applications. Now the question, if you want to deploy it one for all the application or one per application, that's something you need to consider based on the architecture, and we can have a further discussion to see how that works.
Yeah, also like the Wallarm node, it's application agnostic, so like it can work for multiple of APIs that you have or multiple functions. We also support multi-tenancy. So if you are working in the larger org, there's a way to deploy Wallarm so that every team will have an access to their own assets and to the visibility for their own assets. And there's no need to configure anything extra. So it will just work out of the box.
Yeah, and the design also will depend on if you want it highly available and the number of connections that we need probably scale a little closer in Docker containers for Lambda functions. So that's something to consider there.
One of the questions on the deployment and what is the latency, we emphasized it a little bit early in the presentation. So the latency is near zero. We have a lot of benchmarks. We have a lot of tech companies here in Silicon Valley that are relying on our solution. And those guys are paranoid about any latency edits. So we can provide the benchmarks that will show you, hey, you can deploy it, and you can deploy it even in the blocking mode, and it will add very little latency, if any. So
couple more questions came in. One was just about PCI compliance, and it's like PCI compliant.
We actually help companies to be PCI compliant because a part of the PCI DSS, there was a requirement that the company should have a WAF. So we basically replace all the WAFs. We didn't talk during this presentation, but basically our API threat prevention, it's a replacement for the WAF. We just it's an NG WAF that can protect any applications, but it also specifically built to protect API. So this is great. And we don't share any sensitive data from your infrastructure. So that's why we are PCI, it's not an obstacle to be PCI DSS compliant. We also SOC 2 compliant, and we probably will have a PCI DSS, even though it's not a requirement for our cloud this year.
And Jamal asked probably one of our favorite questions is, does Wallarm provide a trial mode or free plan on this product?
I think this is a good segue to finish this webinar today, right? Yeah, we absolutely provide the demo. As a matter of fact, we don't hide demo or trial behind the sales team. We're always glad to talk talk in your specific use case and help you with the deployment. But if you don't want to talk with us for whatever reason it is, you can just go to the website, sign up for a trial, and deploy it like using the docs and try it right away. But there's also a way to talk with us. So just shoot us a note at request@wallarm.com, and there will be always a security engineer on the call who will help you and talk on how you can deploy Wallarm in the best way.
Just to reiterate, we did record the session. I had several people ping us on both the LinkedIn and this channel as well. We will be posting the recording, and I will have a follow-up email going out to you probably by tomorrow. That'll have a link to the recording, and we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar.
Thank you,
Thank you, Alex,
everyone.
and thank you, Stefan.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Alex.
Everyone have a great day.
Thank you.